Krista Coons, I am so delighted to have you on the podcast today. Thank you so much for being here.
I'm so happy. I was telling Alisha, I would get up early for you anytime.
I know we're recording kind of early your time because you're way out in Arizona.
Yes, the desert.
Wow. How long have you been in the desert?
So my husband brought me here. I blame him, but he is an Arizona boy. And so I always calculate it from our first son, who's almost 11. So I want to say I've been here almost 12 years, a year before we had my son. So I
Well,
feel like I should claim it as my home now, but we're getting ready to go into the summer, and I'm like, "Ugh, I hate it here. It's like hell on earth with 120-degree days." But I think everywhere you live, you have like things you love and things we just know it's time to go. It's time to head for the hills, get somewhere cooler.
like literally head for the
Yeah,
hill.
yeah, we do the mountains. Oh, and we have a pool, so we swim. We hop in and out of that, but there's nothing like getting into a hot car or walking outside and you're like, no, thank you. Let's start over.
Exactly. Well, Krista, I had the honor of meeting you in March, and I had the coolest experience with you. And there are so many things about that day that you probably don't even realize felt so serendipitous, and specifically about things you said. So I was in Bonnie Christine's mastermind, and she created a surprise for us where she brought you in to do basically a day of playing in the mud, shall we say.
Yes, it was. It was so beautiful, wasn't it?
It
It
was.
was a surprise and a gift to me as well. And I think sometimes when I get in those situations, I don't really recognize what's coming out of my mouth. So then I get in the car and I'm like, oh no, what did I say? You know? So I'm anxious to hear what it is where we connected. But I did feel kinship to so many women there. It was amazing.
Well, I mean, you literally and figuratively set the table for us in such a magical way. Like, we came back to the Airbnb after having been playing in the Botanical Gardens, which was a major treat because,
Yeah, they are beautiful with the glass. Did you see
yeah,
Jehovah's glass? Oh, so great.
spectacular. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm also an Ohio girl, as we were just sharing.
Yes,
That is so far from what you see in the Midwest, those
it's true.
cacti.
Even even here in the desert, to see it all sort of clustered together. My dad is a horticulturalist, like speaks in Latin, and like my whole childhood was like naming plants and whatever. But when he comes to the desert, especially the botanical gardens, he's always like taking pictures because he can't identify the plants. It's like we call it stump the chump because we can never stump them. And when he comes out to the West, he always finds something new. So that was probably a beautiful experience in and of itself to be exploring like that rugged, sort of savage terrain and seeing the beautiful plants and everything sort of blooming in the spring. So I'm sure it was just layer upon layer for that day.
Yeah, and then we came to the Airbnb, and you had set out, you'd created these boxes for us, and in the boxes were the tools that we would need to play with. And I mean, okay, you'd even done little placemakers with our names on them. And as someone that has a very difficult name, I have almost nothing with my name like printed on it. And
Yeah,
so
me neither. Like the keychains that I always would spin them around. I'm like, no, Krista, especially with a K.
right.
No, Alicia.
No, Alicia.
Oh,
So to get something that felt so prepared for you, like, that feeling when someone sets a table for you and you feel like, wow, they were waiting for me, even though
yeah,
you didn't even know us.
it's true. But I felt like I did at that point make it because Bonnie had sent me your sort of like the booklet of everybody and what they did. And before I like as soon as I said yes, I could do it, I was looking at everybody's faces and reading all your bios and making the nameplates. And I am very intentional when I create, and I felt like I was saying hello, like far before we actually said hello. Like I was getting to know you and prepping for you and keeping everybody in mind and sending you love and creative vibes because I that's just how I like to do it. Even when I send packages out, I say the names out loud and thank them and send them on their way. So I don't get to deliver my packages, but it's sort of like this intention of and this like switch of energy, like so it's kind of magical that you could feel that with just something as simple as your name, you
Oh,
know?
I definitely felt that you did that. And then you had picked, you had clipped, was it from
The
your orange
orange
tree?
blossoms.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know what? They didn't so the orange blossoms only bloom for a couple weeks, and it's like one of the signs to us that it's spring, and
Mm.
our spring is shortened because summer comes and it starts to get hot like in May, end of April. So for like a glorious few weeks, the orange blossoms are like in full bloom, and all anybody wants to do is go for walks or sit outside. It's like Ferdinand. We're all Ferdinand out sniffing the flowers on the trees. And my daughter helped me pick those that morning, but I wanted you to have a little bit of that sort of transient magic. Like it doesn't always stick around. And so if you were going to experience the desert in the spring, you needed to have some orange blossoms. So when you opened your box, you got that beautiful aroma. But also, one of the things I loved was then some of the women chose to roll the orange blossoms in their clay, and they were like preserved forever as like a scented memory. Like obviously it wasn't there, but they could remember part of that experience.
Yeah. One of the women that was in the group, Lissy, I was standing with her when we saw you, and she goes, "That's Krista Coons. Do you know her?" And I didn't know who you were at the time. And I was like, "No." And she's like, "She is a true artist." Like it was like one of
Oh,
those
I
things.
love it.
Even the way you're describing this, I'm like, yes,
Yeah.
Missy was right. You are like a true artist through and through, because the devil's in the detail, I think, with these things. And
Yeah.
you attended to every single detail.
It is one of my favorite things, actually. It is the thing, like to do small things with great care. I think we only have control over so many things. And in ceramics, you don't have a control over a lot of things. Like there are a lot of elements fighting against you. And so to work through the experience of somebody like opening my art, like um the notes, the handwritten notes, or the way that I form collections, it just is actually one of the greatest points of joy for me to be able to try to bring in as many senses as possible to be able to celebrate like little small beautiful things. I think I even gave you guys a little bead. Like I just wanted to say hello and to get to know each other as quickly and like colorfully as we can, even though we only had like 2.5 hours together. And so the details are really important to me. I feel like that's um, something that I've worked hard to be able to do well.
And you do it very well.
Thank
Very, very
you.
well. You said so. So your Instagram handle is Her Name is Mud.
Mhm.
And one of the things that you said to us right off the bat is like, you all need to be playing in the dirt every day. And I don't know that you said it quite like that, but something
Yeah,
along
yeah,
those lines. Do you share
yes.
that a lot with folks?
I feel like the creative practice, like is so unique for us all. But something that I noticed, especially when we were all quarantining and home alone, I would make these videos that were sort of like play therapy for people. And I think that there is something magical about the medium of ceramics. Um, and because it's part of the earth, I think it's just the fact that perhaps being out in nature and being able to have your hands on just sort of that energy of the earth is perhaps like maybe what I was getting at. Just,
Mhm.
um, I think that there's a beautiful grounding that comes from ceramics that helps me. But I think like I think being in our creative practices and doing something every day is really beneficial, and also being out in nature. And I think that there's something really beautiful about like messy hands in any kind of medium. I think it just is like I was teaching a painting class, not that I'm a painter, to my neighborhood ladies, and I like dropped the paintbrush and just started using my fingers, and they were like appalled. And I'm like, get in there, like do it, like make your hands messy. Um, because I think that being all in is so wonderful. You like transcend wherever you are. You're like, it's a moment for you to be able to reflect and to rest and to think. You probably have a similar experience. Like when your hands are busy, I feel like um a lot of things are able to work through you, like from your head and your heart out through your hands. And so that's what I think I was maybe trying to encourage, but I said it in a way. But because I don't think all of us get to actually work with clay, but you could be out digging in your garden or, all kinds of things. But
Well, what that session really, there were a number of things that it opened up for me. I did ceramics. I worked with some ceramics in high school, really loved it, had a great time. And then after college, somewhere in my early 20s, I remember taking like a wheel class and
yeah,
kind of like not loving the wheel, wanting to love
yeah,
the wheel and did
right.
and I think I just put ceramics in this category of like, oh, I'm not good at the wheel. Like that wasn't fun for me. So I don't do ceramics. And what you
Yeah,
opened up was like, there's so much more to
so
ceramics.
many. Yeah, the funny thing is Bonnie and I were trying to work through this because it was a pretty large group. It was like 30 women. And she's like, first she asked me if I knew of any place that could like host that many and they could throw pottery, which is using the wheel. And I was like, you know what? Like, I have been a professional ceramic artist for, I want to say like 14 years now, but I don't use the wheel that often. Like, I'm rusty. And in fact, last year I gifted myself a wheel to be able to just be free and just explore that. I feel like it's important to always be improving your craft. So funny thing, it's still not used. Mostly because but I told Bonnie, I'm like, the wheel can be very frustrating. She is the glamour, she is the glamour side of the ceramic world because you see everyone centering these pots and pulling up the walls, and everybody always says to me, oh, ghost, like that. I don't even know if I've seen that movie, to be honest, but I was like, I don't know if I could come away with something that I was proud of in that amount of time. It is a frustrating thing to learn something new in general, but then uh, I feel like your hands have to remember the way. And I think a lot of times it's frustrating. We just need more time and more practice. Like maybe if you were to take a class, you would feel differently and your hands would remember and you'd be surprised. But I told Bonnie, I want them to be able to have something for their creative practice. And so I don't know if the wheel is the right avenue for that. And I'm like, and I don't know if I'm actually the best person to teach that because it's not my love. My love is like the hand building and the wonk and the charm and the character and the little divots that tell you a person was here. And so I do love the wheel. It's like it makes you transfixed to watch it. But I said, let's do something hand built so everyone is sure to come away with something. They can experience ceramics in a new way. And so many people, like so many women said, I was like surprised to come away with something. And everybody's was beautiful by the time I was like, I know you're gonna feel overwhelmed and frustrated, but just give it to me. Like, let me handle it. I know what to do. Let me be your clay queen. And everybody trusted me. And everyone came away with beautiful things. So I think this was a lesson to maybe try a new avenue in your creative, like repertoire, shall we say.
Yes. And okay, so along those lines, you said something that we talked about in the most comforting way afterwards. You said something along the lines of, listen, I've been doing this for a long time. I know you all might be scared. And I don't remember exactly how you said it,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I'm good on this. Trust me. I can help you through it and you'll walk away with something you like.
yeah,
And that made us feel so held. Like, we're like, hey, how often do we hear a woman say, I'm good at this? And then
yeah.
to like just know that you're in good hands, and you were like, you were
Yes.
young good at it, you were excellent.
I know that ceramics is not, it can be limiting in the fact that it's not like you can set up your paint and your easel and go outside and do it. Like you need some serious equipment, which is kind of sad because I would love so many people to have access to the benefits of having your hands in mud. And just being filled, like I have dirt in my like clay in my hair at the end of my work sessions. But I wanted you to know that it is a common feeling to feel frustrated with clay because it's alive, because it has like a personality and character, and you're fighting the air, the atmosphere. Like making ceramics in Ohio is not the same as making clay in Phoenix. And I've had to learn that. And I know sometimes you feel like this is so rudimentary, and all of you women were brilliant businesswomen, like brilliant creatives, like a high level in your own world, and then play is very humbling. Like even to me, like it teaches me lessons that are hard to learn any other way. And I wanted you to know that I recognize that. And like, I feel frustrated with clay sometimes too. And I didn't want you to think like, it looks like my toddler made this, because there is a lot of messy middle in ceramics. But there's also something really comforting in the fact that as the artist, and well, I took it over for you, but in the ceramic process, the maker touches that piece so many times and guides it along, like from start to finish. Like the making, the refining, the cleaning, the bisquing, the glazing, the wiping, the firing again. Like I have to care for that piece so many times. And I wanted you to know that I would do it for you, and that if you trusted me, like you would come away with something that could bless your creative practice. A lot of our women chose to make palettes or little stands or trays or spoons or like little wells for their paintbrushes. And so that was brilliant. And it was, I think, trust on both parts, because I was talking to some women. I remember one lovely lady, Nancy, she just kept rubbing her thing and saying, what do I do? Like it's not going to work out. And I'm like, I promise you, like keep it, like trust the process. It really is a lot of that, don't you think?
It
Were
was
you, were
100%.
you looking at your stuff and you're like, oh my gosh, don't tell anyone I made this? Sometimes I feel like that. There's a lot of messy middle, a lot of messy beginning, and in the end, every time I open that kiln lid, I'm like, process. It is so beautiful. But
I
I that
love
was
what
kind
you.
of that was kind of bold for me to say that, but I'm glad I did.
I'm so glad you did too, because we felt so supported and so held, like in such divine energy of like, okay, she knows what she's doing. We just need to trust. But what you just said about the messy middle, like
Yeah.
art to me, like that's the thing about art with a little a, not like the art as in like
Yeah.
classically trained, but the little a art of like, I'm gonna I'm gonna play and I'm gonna be in process and I'm gonna give myself over to the process. I feel like I'm an amateur watercolor artist and I paint all the time. And there's always, my watercolor teacher always says, there's always a place in watercolor where it's going to be so ugly and you're not sure if you're going to if it's going to make it. And you're right, that's the messy middle. And whenever we're in process, there's always that place.
Mm-hmm. And you know, the thing that's so funny is watercolor is probably my second favorite, but I think it's because it is unpredictable, like play. And I think a lot of times I will even come away with nothing, and that's okay. Like when I'm playing and exploring, a lot of times I will squish and re-wedge, and that's always an option, which is beautiful in ceramics. You can always begin again, no matter where you are in the process. You can reclaim your clay, which I really love that word. And I think that you're right. A lot of people don't start something new because it's so uncomfortable to be an amateur, a beginner. It really is hard. And a lot of times the things that we learn are from our failures. And that's kind of like a hard thing um, to sort of be comfortable with, and like to nuzzle up to humility and failure in our art practice, because we want everything to be good. But I think ceramics is great in the way where I can show a mess and everyone's like, that's so beautiful. You know, like paint splattered everywhere. But if I was to come into somebody else's studio and do that, they'd be like, get out. You know? But I think we need to allow ourselves some time being uncomfortable, because I think that's where new ideas come, don't you?
Yeah, 100%. I find that I think that's I need creative time every day, because I think in my life I want things to be, I want to get it right so badly all the time. And in playing with art, it's impossible. You're not going to get
Yeah,
it right.
yeah,
And that's what is actually what makes art beautiful, is in the not
right,
getting it right.
right. I also think that there's like an exploration of self that I really love, like um, to be able to pay attention to what you're interested in. It is sort of like art allows you to get to know this current version of yourself if you allow it and sort of reflect on that a little bit. So in the workshop, watching what everybody made and your designs, and you didn't have a lot of time to do it. It was like, we must like be quick, we must move along. It was like a true essence of the like. So I was trying to get to know you before I got to speak to you and get to know you a little bit at our workshop, and then afterwards, as I cared for your pieces, um, I saw some things, you know, like I saw people who had a hard time with the organic. I saw people who like totally embraced that. I saw people who like quickly design. I saw illustrators who were really playful with their designs and the things that they made, and like it didn't bother the, you know, they wanted to make a fish. Like it didn't have to be a serious thing. And so I cared for that fish all the way through. But I just feel like the things that we make, sometimes sometimes we're like, I'm trying to make sense of this, but I also feel like they offer clues about ourselves. Like, oh, I'm really into blue right now, you know? And if we sort of lean into those things, I think that we'll get to know ourselves better as well through art.
Well, you kind of just gave me a perfect segue into a question I have for you. I've been following your Instagram ever since, right? And you have a piece that you've been doing, the Venus.
Yeah.
I am in love with her. Can you tell me how you got the idea for her, and where she evolved from?
Yeah. It's been so I did figure work actually as my BFA show. So that was like, yeah, 14 years ago. This is my first time returning to her. Um, I They were originally inspired by the Venus of Willendorf. She's like one of our first sculptures. She's just this very robust, rotund, really tiny sculpture. And I think I was working through some like body images. Like I was also preparing, my husband and I wanted another baby. And that's really hard on me, really hard on my body. I don't feel like myself for a really long time. And so I sort of was gearing up for that. And also I wanted to open it up into to our community for them to submit experiences or photographs or poems or things about like sort of celebrating our body, but also like acknowledging that there are frustrations, there sometimes are failures by our bodies, things like that. So it started last almost about this time last year, and then so many things happened where I had to put it on pause, and then it sort of evolved into something different, which has been wonderful. Um, I was originally just going to make them and keep them all together and then offer them to collectors at the end. But then I decided I wanted to work in chapters that were a little bit more themed. So they, through that year, I tried to work on them, and I told the stories that I sort of would tell the stories as I would build them. But then I was pregnant and very sick. My family moved homes and studios. So it just was like this, it was a beautiful thing for me to sort of write down those stories to put into a time when I was going to be able to. So now the Venuses are in chapters, like thematic themes, like in chapters. And I'm working through one on divinity right now. And that they're inspired by my time in Italy, which was so like formative and like for me as an artist to be just so immersed in beauty. And I remember looking at, I was in the Botticelli room in the Uffizi gallery, and I remember thinking like I want to make something that speaks of divinity. And um who knew that it would be 14 years later? So now this particular chapter are wall pieces, and they all have these halos that are really intricate and beautiful. And some more beautiful things are coming with that. But the next chapter is on like mental health, and I'm going to be making porcelain paintings, kind of like inspired by Matisse. And then the third chapter for this year is going to be a collaboration with a poet and a writer. Her name is Kalina Cicero. She's writing poems about friendship, and I'm going to build the sculptures to her words. And like I didn't she sent me the document of her poems, and I don't think I've made it past number 2 without crying. It's going to be so beautiful. And then I'm hoping I get to make the last one for this year around the same time that I gave birth to my son, about vessels. And I want to make large beautiful vases. But the beauty of a woman's body being a vessel to carry things. So I want to think about themes of pregnancy, but also postpartum, and also sometimes loss, because it doesn't always turn out the way that we want, and sometimes our bodies betray us. But so it originally just started as figure work, but I wanted it to be so much more. And I also felt like for me as an artist, like I didn't want to become a production potter. Like I didn't want to just keep cranking stuff out. Like there are things I needed to explore for myself, and things that I felt like were asking me to make them. Like I really feel like this importance of self love and acceptance, and treating ourselves with softness. It's been a really beautiful reminder for me as I am, you know, postpartum and working through a lot of things myself, but also just looking forward to what's to come with those, and the ability then to have more voices than just my own, like with the help of the community, my creative community. So it's been possibly one of the single most beautiful collections I've ever made.
Well, I'm
So
mesmerized by
yeah, they have a lot of meaning. And I think they also mean different things to everybody. Like I tell you what they mean to me, but I also get like the most beautiful messages just of, even just about a color. Like one of the colors is green, and I've had beautiful conversations with women about how that just reminds them of specific things. So I think it's a beautiful point of connection for us all, instead of just like, here's my here's my here's my spoons and my paintbrushes, buy these. It's becoming so much more. They all get a certificate of authenticity. Like, I feel like they are the finest work for me. So I'm excited to help to see them through. I'm also nervous, like, I feel like they're waiting in. Some of them are halfway finished, some of them are like 2/3 finished, and I'm like a little bit nervous to finish them and to part with them, because it will mean something different. But I also feel a little bit of responsibility.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's been fun.
they are magnificent. And I'm so glad that we get glimpses of them on Instagram. Thank you for sharing them with us
Yes.
in that way. Um, what you were saying about exploring divinity, I'm wondering, how do you think creating and making brings us closer to divinity?
I feel like divinity is a creator. Like, I am religious, and so I do believe that, like, the earth was created by divinity. And so when I look around and see the creations, I am like in awe. Like, I sometimes see things like a butterfly. I'm like, ooh, they must have had a good time divine, like designing a butterfly. Or, like, "Ah, what a happy thing to make oranges like grow on a tree." Like, they're just so many things that I can't help but feel like they witness about divinity. And I also feel like it is the truest measure of me, or ourselves possibly, to come in like, to use that creative power.
Mhm.
I feel like it's sort of a nod to our creator, because I think we've all been given talents, and some of us may not feel artistic or artists. I feel like we all are creators in a specific in our own unique way. And so I always that's one of my, like, teaching points and encouraging points and mentoring points. It just is, take the time to explore, take the time to find what sort of, like, the thing that brings you joy to create. Like, for me, I feel like I need a creative outlet, even though that's my work, and, like, my first love is ceramics. But I love baking with my kids, like, and the processes are kind of similar. But, like, to create beautiful dishes, like nourishing dishes, and then to be able to gather friends and family, and then also sometimes serve them on things that I made. Like, there are so many things that overlap and bring things full circle. But I feel like one of the things that I will say until I die is, like, we need to be creating. Like, I feel like it is something that brings us close to divinity. It also, I feel like, is the, like, truest expression of ourselves. It helps us, like, make and mend our own self as well. Um, and we've all been given talents and inclinations, even if we haven't found them yet. And I feel like it's important to develop ourselves and to be able to be our best, like, whatever that is. And so, yeah, I'm very into that idea. I
Yeah,
love that you connected those.
well, I'm mesmerized by it. I'm just published my first book, Little Failures, and it's all about resiliency and growth and how that only happens through failure. But my next book is going to be Little Rituals, and I'm not, I'm exploring the topic right now. When you say you're
Yeah,
gonna write a book, like, it's really just
yeah,
like the exploration of intersection in the beginning.
yeah,
But I'm really curious about the intersection between ritual and creativity, and and the way that exploring in a creative way does help us touch the divine.
yeah.
And
I love this. I'm very excited to read this. I'm sure that I'm sure that you're like, well, Krista, I have more to explore.
Well, I
And
feel
so,
like I'm gonna have to interview you for this book because
you know
you.
what the funny thing is, and somebody brought this up. So I am an Enneagram.
Oh, I lost you.
Alisha,
Oh,
are you with me?
yeah, I'm there. Okay, so you said you're an Enneagram what?
Oh, here. So in my creative practice, it's actually the one place where I do have rituals and routines and just the like the preparation and sort of getting yourself in this beautiful frame of mind. I also, you might want to read this book. I'll have to send it to you, but it was a book of women and their rituals and their routines and the things that they did to prepare themselves for their own creations. It was like their daily habits and things like that. But I think creating habits and sort of routines allow inspiration to trust you. I think that I used to open all of my sessions with rolling ring cones. So I my hands to warm up. I walk into my studio, I say affirmations out loud, I light a specific candle. I allow my hands to warm up and to remember clay. And like, granted, it's not all the time because I have 4 little kids, and sometimes I just pop in and out of there, but when I am truly, like, getting ready to create something or when I feel like inspiration is like, "Krista, this one's for you, catch," you know?
Yeah.
Um, then I take those seriously, and I feel like, inviting this good energy around you is an important part of that too. I think it creates mindfulness. I think it opens your mind and allows new ideas to come. I veer directions a lot of times in my designing. That's hard work to work through, and so a lot of times I think it just is like, okay, I'm open to this. Like I recognize that this shape keeps appearing and I've taken note and now I'm going to use it in my art. I think there are a lot of clues given along the way too that we need to be open to. Like I don't use my sketchbook for sketching, but it is a lot of like a little bit, but not like I don't take it outside and like draw the birds. But it is like a safe place for notes and ideas and like little things that I notice like that. And I feel like that's another way to sort of have a ritual is to learn how to recognize when beauty and inspiration is speaking to you directly in its own unique way, because I think we all recognize it differently, but I think that takes practice.
Yeah.
And so I think sometimes the rituals help us.
So we began talking about intention and how important intention and details are. How do you think intention affects rituals or rituals affect intention when it comes to creating?
I feel like they are very connected. I feel like I I feel like I can sometimes notice in my own case if I don't first go through this centering of self. I also feel like setting intentions, like as in prioritizing the things that you want to give your energy to first, are important. Like in my practice, I feel like I have these meetings with my studio manager on Monday, and by Tuesday we've already shifted just because of the things we have to keep up with in the studio. And like we're like, oh, that's not quite dry, we can't add that, and so we're always moving and flowing. But I think to be able to come into your space, wherever that is, and say, I'm open to this. I am going to use my talents for good in this way. Um, I am I recognize that these are perhaps inspiration. This is something that I'm going to work through and work on, and ceramics actually has done the unique sort of blessing as being able to be used and function in specific ways. Art as both form and function, like beauty. Um, I feel like it is something where, as a younger artist, I did not do. And I feel like it helps me set the tone and also the direction for my work, and even just like the day-to-day flows that come, like this is what I'm doing today, this is what I'm working on, let it be my best work.
Mm, I love that so much. Krista, I could talk to you all day, and I want to be really mindful of time. What else would you like listeners to know about you, your work, anything?
I just feel like I would love for us all to search for beauty in our small moments. I think too often we're waiting for these moments where we go on trips, or that we like plan and we're like, okay, beauty can visit me now because I'm ready. And I feel like if we embrace sort of the ordinary and the mundane and sort of train our eyes and our hearts and our minds to be on the lookout for wonder, then I feel like it will become easier for us to translate our inspiration and our ideas into our creative practices. So I think that there is beauty in the little things and the small things, and I always feel like it's like a little twinkling, like, and sometimes even throughout my day I will pause and like say hello, like not in like a weird like, oh hello you, but just as like, I recognize that you're here. I recognize that that was a beautiful moment that I just witnessed. I recognize that that was something that I felt like so deeply when I watched this interaction between my children. Um the the dishes that are messy, but you know what, we just had friends over and now my kitchen is trashed. I love that mess. I feel like it's beautiful. And I take pictures of like portraits of like this the dishes in the sink, because it means that people were cared for, people were loved for. I was able to offer something and to make something with my hands. So I feel like if that becomes a habit, it will bless your creative practice so abundantly. It will be so beautiful for you to be able to recognize those little twinklings that are just for you.
Oh, that is rich. Thank you so much for sharing. I if someone is listening right now, I think that they need to sign up for your newsletter. I love, so I'm going to put that link in the show notes. I
Yes.
literally wait with bated breath for your newsletter. I'm
Yes.
like, oh, it's more things.
I love my way to collect things for my community, because I feel like it really is this exchange of energy and joy and love and so many things. And and I am supported by my business to be a nice beauty, or to live this creative life, or to try this recipe and all these things. And so that makes me so happy that you I have some good things coming. Like, I one of the girls I mentored asked me this month, and I've been thinking about it, like, how do I know my work is good? So I'm going to be talking about that in May's newsletter, and also prepping for the release of the O'Keeffe collection, and then getting ready for the Venus launch. And I feel like I'm going to open that up to the newsletter community first, because there just are a few. So it does have its benefits. Friends,
Yeah.
join me.
Well, I'll make sure that link is in the show notes so folks can check you out. But your Instagram handle is,
The best.
her name is Love, Mud. I'm like, her name is Love. You're Love.
It could very well be love. Yes, it's at, and then her name, and then underscore is Mud.
That's such a beautiful handle. And my last question for you is, how do you live a life of abundance?
I feel like it is a little bit about what we were talking about, just being on the lookout for wonder. I feel like it's this cycle of like, I recognize you, you've blessed my life. I would like to create something that is able then to bring a sense of grounding, peace, beauty, whatever it is. And so I'm going to sort of imbue my work with that. And so I also feel like it's important to create from a place of abundance. So then also recognizing the need to celebrate what we've just done and to rest and to wait and to listen. I think that those are also important things to remember, but to bring back to fill our vessels and our wells so that we can share and give more again. So I think that's an important part of the process too, is to rest, wait, listen, to have some stillness. Those are moments that I feel like we should guard in our creative practice, are those moments of stillness, so that beauty can come again.
Krista, thank you so much for sharing your beauty, your wisdom, your creativity with us today. It's such an honor to talk to you.
I've had the best time. Thank you so much.